Today is April 5th, 2026, so it's Easter. And Trump put out this post here where you can see that he's kind of losing it. And it made me think, okay, maybe this attack that has been delayed several times is inevitable at this point, and we're going to see an actual escalation to the point where we start to take out, I shouldn't say we, I'm not American, but the US and the Trump administration and Israel decide to take out civilian infrastructure, energy infrastructure in Iran in an attempt to make them give up. And I think at this point, it's highly unlikely that they will give in and they will retaliate just as they have in every other circumstance where the US has attacked them and escalated the conflict. So, where do we stand? Well, we've already seen that refineries, ports, oil depots, desalination plants have all been attacked in this conflict. And it made me think, what is the most likely targeting that we'll see in Iran if on April 7th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as per Trump's Truth Socials, we see an attack take place on Iran's energy infrastructure and civilian infrastructure. So, first and foremost, at the top of the list is Kharg Island. Now, this is an area that many experts, and there's already been many videos done on this, that handles 90% of Iran's crude exports, roughly 1.6 million barrels per day. So, it's like the beating heart of the Iranian economy. And Trump has explicitly threatened its destruction if the strait remains closed. So I think it's a foregone conclusion at this point that would be very high on the target list, and we would likely see that target be taken out, at least damaged to the point where there's a very long timeline to get it back operational. Boots on the ground, I don't know, that would make them sitting ducks and very likely targets of the Iranian leadership. So I don't know that we'll see boots on the ground, but definitely it's high on the priority list for attack. Next, we have the Damavand Combined Power Plant. This is a natural gas power plant that is located 50 kilometers southeast of Tehran, and it is Iran's largest power station, generating 2,868 megawatts. It supplies 43% of Tehran's electricity, and its destruction would trigger massive civil unrest and paralyze the capital. National level grid collapse would take place, failure of electrically pumped water systems in Tehran, and it's highly vulnerable. There's a large signature and it's impossible to hide, very difficult to protect. So far has remained untouched, but I would suggest that it's a primary target for the biggest one first ultimatum that we're hearing. Next, we have the Persian Gulf Star Refinery. This is in Bandar Abbas. It is a gas condensate refinery. What's important with this refinery is that it is critical for domestic gasoline production. It processes condensate for self-PARs. By eliminating domestic fuel production, this forces the Iranians to rely on dwindling stockpiles, which paralyzes the military and civilian logistics. So what we would see is immediate gasoline shortages and a paralysis of internal security forces. Vulnerability is medium on this one because the proximity to the coast and Bandar Abbas, there's air defenses in the area. Next, we have the Shahid Salimi power plant. This is located in Nekka Mazandaran province in the Caspian Sea, so very far north in Iran. This is a thermal power plant operated by the MAPNA group. It generates 2,215 megawatts using gas and fuel oil and is vital for northern Iran's industrial stability and grid balance. If this is hit, we'll see regional blackouts in the so-called safe northern provinces, but will be a psychological blow to the Iranian stability. The vulnerability here is medium, I would say. It's far from the southern front, but within range of Israeli and US cruise missiles. So far untouched, but a medium level threat on this one. Next is Raman Power Plant. This is in the Avaz, Khuzestan province. It's a steam power plant and it generates 1,890 megawatts in the oil-rich southwest. This is essential for operation of Khuzestan's oil fields and refinery clusters. So you'll see cascading failures across southwestern industrial grids and loss of field pumping power for the oil. Vulnerability on this one is high. It's located in a province with significant unrest and existing kinetic damage already. So far it's untouched, but pretty high confidence that this is a target. Abadan Refinery is the next one. It's a crude oil refinery. It processes about 500,000 barrels per day. It's a major source of refined products for the military and the southwestern population. Impact damage on this one would be a regional fuel crisis, symbolic blow to the Iranian industrial heritage, and it's very highly vulnerable. It's on the border with Iraq, exposed to multiple strike vectors. So far untouched, but again, pretty high confidence on this one. Jask Oil Terminal. This is in the Gulf of Oman. So it is an oil export terminal that is outside of the Strait of Hormuz and is Iran's primary terminal outside of the Strait of Hormuz. Eliminating Jask prevents Iran from bypassing the coalition's maritime monitoring blockade of the strait. It closes Iran's last remaining door for crude exports. I would say the vulnerability on this one is high. It's coastal and newly established with limited hardening, so far untouched, and I would give this one a medium level confidence that we could see some damage there. Next is the Gore Booster Station. This is near Ganave, Khuzestan. Pipeline pumping station is basically what it is. It's the primary booster for crude oil pipelines feeding Kharg Island. This paralyzes the flow of oil from major fields to the export hub, and vulnerability is very high. It's a single point of failure in the pipeline network, so far has been untouched. We also have the Ganave pipeline manifold. This is on the Ganave coast. It's a strategic pipeline node that it's a gathering point for offshore and onshore pipelines before they transit to Kharg Island. It's a long-term export paralysis, technically difficult to repair under fire if it's damaged. It's an exposed coastal site that so far has been untouched in this conflict. The Shahid Montazeri power plant in Isfahan. This is a thermal power plant. Generates about 1,600 megawatts for central Iran. Powers the Isfahan industrial heartland, including military manufacturing zones. The impact would be blackouts in Isfahan, disruption to dual-use industries. Vulnerability is medium. Centrally located with some residual air defense, so far untouched in the conflict. That was the top 10 targets that we might see in Iran. Another 10 possible targets are the Kerman power plant, which is a combined cycle power plant, generates 1,912 megawatts in the southeast. This is critical for maintaining stability in the southeastern provinces, supporting regional military command. This would have regional blackouts and failure of water pumping in arid zones. It's pretty highly vulnerable, relatively isolated from central air defense coverage. The South Pars compressor platforms, phases 12, 13, and 14 are the next potential targets. These are offshore in the Persian Gulf. These are natural gas compression platforms that are necessary to move gas from the offshore gas field onshore. If these are damaged, we're looking at years to repair. Vulnerability here is extreme. The static offshore platforms are easy targets for anti-ship or cruise missiles, so far untouched, while refineries on land have been hit. Next is the IGAT-8 compressor stations. These are in central Iran. These are gas pipeline compressor stations, critical nodes on the pipeline transporting South Pars gas to Tehran and the north. This would cause widespread gas shortages for heating and power generation in northern cities. Vulnerability is high. These are isolated facilities in desert regions. The Shahid Rajeh port, this is a logistics hub in Bandar Abbas. It's a maritime container port, Iran's primary gateway for non-oil trade, including food and medicine. A total collapse of civilian supply chains and a humanitarian crisis would result. Next is the Bid Boland gas refinery. This is a natural gas treatment plant. We have the Safashahar compressor station in Fars province, pipeline compressor station. This is a vital node as well. The Bandar Abbas power plant. In Tehran, we have 400 kilovolt substations, the Pars petrochemical complex, as well as the Sirik substation. This is another high voltage substation. So these are the top 20 targets that I see for any kind of strategic strike by the Israelis and the United States into Iran. Now, what would Iran's retaliation look like, potentially? Well, I think unlike a lot of the retaliation we've seen so far, I think we're going to see more targeted retaliation in Israel than we will throughout the GCC. I still think we're going to see GCC desalination and power plants and whatnot hit, but I think we're going to see some very strategic and significant targeting of Israel's infrastructure. So first would be the Oret Rabin power station. This is in Hadera, Israel. It's a thermal power plant. It's Israel's largest power station, producing 2,590 megawatts. Iran has already fired a warning shot at this facility. So we know that they can hit it, and this would be a massive national blackout and paralysis of the Israeli economy. It's highly exposed on the coast, so far untouched. Next, we have the Sorik 1 and 2 desalination plants near Palmachim. This is south of Tel Aviv. These are 20% of Israel's drinking water. So this would create a water crisis for Tel Aviv's metropolitan area. It's coastal and static, so very vulnerable. Moving into the UAE, we have the AI data center in Abu Dhabi. This is a 1 gigawatt AI infrastructure cluster. OpenAI, G42, Oracle all use this facility. Trump announced it was the crown jewel of US-UAE tech collaboration. So IRGC has released specific videos threatening this site. The impact of damage, this would be a global loss of trust in the Middle East tech hubs, billions in US corporate capital destroyed. Its vulnerability is very high. It's under construction in early phase and so far untouched, but confidence level in this is fairly high. In Saudi Arabia, we have the Al Jubail desalination plant. This is on the Saudi Gulf Coast. It's a desalination and power complex. The significance of this facility is that it supplies Riyadh with the majority of its drinking water. So a potential evacuation of Riyadh within 7 days, if there's a catastrophic damage to this facility, it would create a humanitarian crisis. It's very vulnerable. It's within easy range of Iranian drones, so far untouched, but pretty high confidence on this one. Next is the Jebel Ali Power and Desalination Complex in the UAE. This is in Dubai. It's a cogeneration facility, supplies the vast majority of Dubai's water and power. The survival of Dubai as a global city depends entirely on this one facility. So you would see immediate collapse of Dubai's urban life, forced evacuation. It's coastal, it's got a very massive footprint, so it's very vulnerable. Currently untouched, but nearby was a port hit, so the Iranians have shown that they can reach this facility. Going back to Israel, we have the Leviathan gas platform. This is located 130 kilometers offshore Haifa. It's a natural gas production platform operated by Chevron. It is Israel's largest gas supply node, so it'd be a total disruption of Israel's gas supply. Suspension of exports to Egypt and Jordan would result. It's highly vulnerable, isolated offshore platforms that don't move, currently shut down as a precaution, but physically intact. More desalination plants in Saudi Arabia. We have the Ras Al Khair desalination plant. This is in eastern Saudi Arabia. It's critical for eastern industrial stability and backup for the central region. Total water failure in Saudi Eastern Province industrial heartland. It's vulnerable because it's coastal, so far untouched. In the UAE, we also have the Fujairah oil storage and terminal. I did a video on this a little while back when I did the Kharg Island video, so make sure you go check that out. But this one is in the Gulf of Oman, outside of the Strait of Hormuz. It's an oil storage hub, one of the primary rerouting points for Gulf oil avoiding the Strait of Hormuz. It traps more oil within the Persian Gulf, ends the bypass option for the UAE, so it's a very strategic point. Vulnerability is high. It's been periodically shut down by drone strikes, but still operational right now. Current status is partially functional, at risk for full-scale strikes. Next is the Saudi East-West pipeline pumping stations. This is a pipeline that traverses Saudi Arabia. It transports 5 million barrels a day from the Gulf to the Red Sea, bypassing the Strait. So it makes sense. You'd want to cut off these contingency arteries of oil flow out of the Gulf to really make your point. This closes the primary alternative of the Strait of Hormuz for the coalition. Vulnerability is high. It's vulnerable to sabotage or precision missile strikes along its 1,200 kilometer length. So far untouched, but definitely a very high value target. In Bahrain, we have the AWS Microsoft Cloud regions. These are hyperscale data centers. This underpins the regional digital economy and dual use command infrastructure. This would cause a systemic failure of banking, telecom, and government cloud services across the GCC. Vulnerability is it exposes urban locations to AWS sites hit in UAE and Bahrain, and others remain at extreme risk. Current status is that 2 AWS sites have already been hit in the UAE and Bahrain, and so the others remain at extreme risk. We have the Ras Tanura oil processing hub in Saudi Arabia. We might see a restrike here. This is in the Dammam region. This is the world's largest crude processing facility. It's essential for Saudi Aramco's export capability, the Kharg Island equivalent for the coalition. Total market panic would result if this was hit, and it'd be a massive coastal footprint target, so easily struck by these drones and missiles. It was briefly hit early in the war. It's now functional, but is a primary restrike target. We have 2 more desalination plants in Israel that are potential targets, the Ashkelon desalination plant and the Hadera desalination plant. In the UAE, we have the Ruwais industrial complex refineries. We have the Al Basra oil terminal in Iraq. This is an offshore Persian Gulf location, but it is a strategic export terminal, exports 80% of Iraq's GDP. We have the Shuaibah desalination plant in Saudi Arabia. This is on the Red Sea near Jeddah. Babco refinery in Bahrain. This would be a restrike. This is located in Sitra, Bahrain, in a crude oil refinery. We also have desalination and power in Kuwait, Jawra, Kuwait. This is a desalination and power complex that supplies 50% of Kuwait's water. It would be a water crisis for 2 million residents. We have the Hagit power station in Israel. This would be northern Israel. It's a combined cycle power plant, Israel's 3rd largest thermal plant at 1,370 megawatts. It's a known strategic node, so a likely target. And last but not least, the Yanbu crude export terminal in Saudi Arabia. This is another Red Sea coast terminal. It's an oil terminal and the exit for the East-West pipeline. This closes the last strategic loophole for this Saudi exports to Europe. That would be the rundown of the top 20 targets inside Iran, as well as the top 20 sites that I can see within the GCC and is in Israel. So let me know in the comments what you think are going to be the primary targets if the threat Trump has put forward to attack Iran goes through. Curious to hear what you guys have to say in the comments. Kind of as a summary, we'll put it down as refineries have a very high strategic attractiveness. They're kind of medium vulnerability, and repair time is like 6 to 12 months, but this is an escalation risk that's very high. Power plants, from a strategic point of view, they are very high. They're low vulnerability because they're hardened facilities. The repair time is typically like 1 to 3 years, and the escalation risk in this scenario would be extreme because this is civilian infrastructure. Similar to desalination, you're looking at extreme attractiveness from the Iranian logic as a retaliatory strike if the Americans proceed with their war crime actions on Iranian infrastructure. The vulnerability is high, 2 to 5 years to repair, maximum escalation risk. LNG hubs, high attractiveness, high vulnerability, 3 to 5 years to repair. Data centers, strategically very attractive. This is kind of a new front for warfare, highly vulnerable, 1 to 2 years to repair. And export terminals, these are critical, highly vulnerable, and 6 to 12 months to repair if they do get hit. The vulnerability of desalination plants is the single greatest asymmetric advantage held by Tehran. While Iran relies heavily on its inland rivers and aquifers, the GCC states are 90 to 99% dependent on these coastal desalination plants. So experts, analysts from the Geneva Water Hub and Tufts University highlights that a successful strike on a plant like Jebel Ali or Jubail would be felt within hours, necessitating mass evacuations that neither the US nor the Gulf monarchies are prepared to manage. So what would this mean for the consequences of this act if this happens? Well, the destruction of the desalination infrastructure would create a humanitarian crisis that exceeds the capacity of any regional state to manage. The loss of Al Jubail alone would force the evacuation of 7 million people from Riyadh. Trump's goal of bombing Iran back to the Stone Age would likely be mirrored by Iranian strikes on Israel and the Gulf. This would lead to a persistent, years-long energy deficit in the Eastern Mediterranean and the Persian Gulf. The targeting of data centers like Stargate in the UAE or AWS would end the era of the Middle East as a safe haven for global capital. Trillions in investment would permanently exit the region, shifting the global tech center of gravity towards North America and East Asia. And we'd have a maritime stalemate. Despite the coalition's air supremacy, the IRGC's ability to disrupt the Strait of Hormuz remains the weapon of mass disruption. Experts warn that even if Iran is obliterated, its ability to mine the waterway ensures that global energy markets will remain in crisis for 3 to 5 years. So if Trump does go forward with his attack on Iran and Iran retaliates and Iran is still put out of commission, the Strait of Hormuz will still remain closed. It'll be functionally closed. The disruption to the energy economy would be years, half a decade to a decade. In my next video, I'm going to be going into a deep dive on the practical aspects of what this end game scenario would be for the world, how this would play out over the next 6 to 12 months in terms of projects we'd see around the world that would start up to try and fill this void of energy supply, as well as fertilizer and other raw materials that are supposed to come out of the Gulf. So I'm going to be doing that in a future video. Make sure you like and subscribe so you get notified when that comes out. And let me know in the comments if there's something you would like me to go back and revisit or talk more about. I'm always happy to engage with my audience. I hope you found this content valuable. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.